The gentleman from California is
I
recognized.
rise in opposition to H.R. 5116, but let me begin by congratulating Chairman Gordon for the great leadership that he's provided while he's been chairman of the committee, as well as the great cooperation and leadership that Ranking Hall, Member Hall, has provided us. These two gentlemen have exemplified the very best of our democratic system. And back now to this piece of legislation, however, the theoretical purpose of the American COMPETES Reauthorization Act is to enhance the nation's long-term economic competitiveness through investment in science and technology. I support this laudable goal, as I have for more than 21 years as a member of the Committee on Science and Technology, including 10 years in which I was a subcommittee chairman. But I cannot support this legislation, which simply put authorizes too much funding in too many wrong-headed ways. While I'm certain this bill was drafted with the best of intentions and motivations, I strongly disagree that this is in our nation's best interest. American investments in science and technology cannot operate in a vacuum. We need a broader strategy that prioritizes spending, reduces debt, eliminates deficits, provides clarity, stability, and the appropriate regulatory environment. Only this combined policy, with all its difficult analysis and hard choices that it entails, will allow America to maintain our technological edge. But this legislation makes no choices. It simply authorizes more and more spending. We cannot enhance our long-term competitiveness by mortgaging the future of our children and grandchildren. That is precisely what this legislation does. The Congressional Budget Office says that implementing this legislation will cost $85 billion, a 32% increase over the FY 2010 baseline, and this will clearly elevate the level of deficit spending for our country. We are talking about borrowing money from China and other foreign nations to meet the goals of this legislation. It's new spending on top of old, creating towering debt, like the game of Jenga, that is. We are eroding the base by piling even greater burdens on an increasingly unstable system, hoping that the whole thing won't just fall apart while we're holding the ball. Well, instead, if we manage to get through this without a total collapse, the way our country is going, we will be burying our children in debt. And that is not an option that we should be advocating, and we should go at the debt legislation by legislation as we are today. At this time, in this legislation, there is no prioritization of programs and spending, no attempt at increasing efficiencies or at restructuring programs that would be expected to be reauthorized in a bill of this size and complexity. There aren't even any common sense safeguards to make sure that these funds won't promote foreign competitors. If we finance foreign researchers and when they return home with their new capabilities, it certainly won't help America compete. Perhaps if the money will go to train foreigners and subsidize companies not owned by Americans, we should rename this the America Depletes Act. Creating new federal programs or expanding existing programs should always be done with caution and oversight. Establishing new programs, especially in times of economic downturn, means increasing deficit spending, which is in itself something that will drag down productivity and economic activity. Good things. This legislation creates new programs which are unnecessary and wasteful, and which some of my fellow colleagues have already pointed out are redundant to existing programs. All of this while increasing the level of deficit spending. This is not a roadmap to progress for a better future. It's just another well-intended spending program financed by borrowing that will propel America over the economic cliff to which we are headed. Over this last year, spending more, borrowing more, taxing more, subsidizing more, and running up the level of federal deficit spending at such a record pace has not spurred our economy. It has not caused economic growth or reversed the economic crisis and challenge which we find ourselves confronting today. I believe those pushing this legislation are well-intended, but they're not diligent. Diligence would be required and would require prioritization, program restructuring, regulatory relief, and tearing down the roadblocks to using the technologies that we already have rather than just spending more and more. So with that, I suggest that there are good parts of this bill, but I would have to rise in opposition.
Is recognized.
Thank you very much.
Chair, I recognize